In less than 5 years, I had that over $1 million. Now here's the real crazy part. If you asked me what I was doing, I couldn't have told you. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Do you know that most people that are really successful, they don't know why they're successful? They really can't. They cannot articulate why they are. They're what you call unconscious competence. They're very good, but they can't really articulate why they are. Unfortunately, that means they can't even transfer that to their kids. Not a good place to be. You see, I was in England. I had all this money. I didn't care what I did because I knew where the money was. I'd just go get some more. And I'd go down to Playboy on Park Lane, right beside the London Hilton, and I'd play roulette. I didn't care if I lost. I knew how to get more. And one day, it dawned on me that I wasn't being very responsible. And then I started to think, what happened to me? How did this change? Because over a short period of time, I went from having nothing and having almost everything. And I couldn't tell you. I'd been raised to believe if you're going to earn a lot of money, you got to be really smart. I knew I wasn't very smart. I knew that. I had a very limited vocabulary. If you used a word I didn't understand, I'd have to get a dictionary out and find out what you meant. And I thought, how did I change? I'd been raised to believe if you don't go to school, you can't get a good job. I didn't have a good job. I owned the whole company. And I thought, I should figure out what happened to me. Because it happened fairly fast, just poof, poof, poof. And you know, I couldn't find anybody who could teach me. They couldn't tell me what happened. So I started to study. Do you know, it took me 9.5 years to find out why Bob changed. I was Bob, why I changed. My life had changed. And when I found out it was so simple, I could understand why I was missing it. And I made up my mind when I figured it out, I was going to spend the rest of my life teaching this. Because I thought there's so many people don't know. And they don't even know they don't know. I left my own company. I went to Chicago and I got a job with the Nightingale Conant Corporation because I wanted to work with Earl. I wanted to study him. I took a job for $18,000 a year. That's a long ways down from $1 million plus. 3 years later, I was earning $33,000. But you see, I was prepared to pay them to let me work there. I just wanted to find out what they knew. I knew they knew. And you know what I found out? It's so basic. It was the repetition of listening to the records. We had records then. If you were to visit my studio in Toronto, I have a beautiful bookshelf and library, and on one of the shelves is a small handheld record player. And I would drive around listening to these records. I got so addicted to listening to them, I had never heard anybody talk like this. It made me feel so good. It was incredible. Now, to boot, the guy had a phenomenal voice. I used to think if God had a voice, you know, it would be Earl, because he had great pipes. And yeah, it was the repetition of listening. That defies intellect. You see here, school, they give you the book, you read the book. They ask you questions, you put it aside, get another book. And they think you know this. You don't know it at all. You just remembered some stuff in it and you answered questions. That is not learning. That's gathering information. That's not learning. Learning is when you consciously entertain an idea. You get emotionally involved in that idea. You act on the idea and you change the end result. It's the feedback from the change in result that's the learning experience. You're learning how to earn money here. You're learning how to inspire other people to live the way they want to live. That's what you're teaching people. And that's what you want to remember. This is so important. School doesn't teach it. The church is not teaching it. It's not being taught in home. This is vitally important. It's our life, for God's sake. It's our life. Most people live and die and they never learn how to live. Well, that book sure changed everything for me. And I'd like to lead you to the path that this book kept me on for the last 58 years. And I believe that my daily choice is taking you there. Oh, I do. I have an assistant, Gina, who has worked with me for 33 years. She and her husband, my wife and I, are all good friends. 33 years. Gina's just a phenomenal person to work with. She takes care of everything for me. She and I went over to the office here in Vegas and met with Josh and Jenna. When I left there, I said, you know something? I don't think the people in this company even realize what they've gotten these two. No, I do. Listen, they've got inside of them something that you can't buy. But you can get it because it's built into the seam of this company. Now look at, build a big goal. Build a goal that inspires you every night when you go to bed. It fills your mind when you wake up in the morning. And understand this, if you can think it, my daily choice will help you get it. Your spiritual DNA is perfect. Back that up. You know what that means? It means there's perfection within every one of us. There's perfection within every one of us. It doesn't require any modification or any improvement. Absolutely none. There is perfection within you. And that perfection seeks expression within through you. That's what causes you to want. My grandmother pretty well raised me. And I'm going to tell you something, Grandma was wrong on this score because she said you should be satisfied with what you've got. Grandma was wrong. Never. You should never be satisfied with what you've got. You should be happy with it. Dissatisfaction is a creative state. Dissatisfaction is going to get you to reach higher, go further, run faster. Dissatisfaction is a creative state. It's the spiritual essence within us seeking expression through us. See, there's perfection within us, and it wants to express itself within through us. That's why you want. You want a Lamborghini. You want to buy the whole building. Whatever you want. Understand this. Everything you own when you die belongs to somebody else. You never own anything. You're merely a custodian. You should have it, and you should enjoy it, but you never own it. But what you are is yours forever. That's why we want to develop a greater awareness. We want to become aware of this perfection within us. Spirit's all-knowing. You know what that means? All the knowledge there ever was or ever will be is omnipresent. All the knowledge there ever was. The way to build a cell phone has always been here. All the power. You'll wonder, where does she get all the energy? Where does he get? Nobody gets energy. Everybody releases energy. Desire, it's a triggering message. Lets it go. I'll be 86 on my next birthday. I got more energy than most people, 26. Okay? Now listen. Your age has got nothing to do with it. It's what you're thinking. All the power there ever was or ever will be. Quit saying, oh, I'm tired, I don't know where you get all the energy. You've already got it. Release it. Desire. Desire is the triggering mechanism, and it doesn't matter where you are because it's omnipresent. See, when you're underwater, you can think. I worked with Captain Mitchell, Edgar Mitchell. He was captain of the lunar landing module on one of the Apollo flights. He was doing thought transference exercises with the other side of the moon with Sherman and Ford here in southern United States. We're connected to everything. Everything's connected to us. There is only one power. And that's the real you. Are you truly who you pretend to be? Come on. Wake up, get out and make it happen. Now, some of you have seen this on a slide. I'm going to look at the mind and look at paradigms. But let's get more personal. Let's make it your mind and your paradigm. Now, there was a doctor in San Antonio, Texas, the year I was born, 1934. God, it seems like yesterday. It was a minute ago. And he was very involved in the healing arts. He was very involved with the mind. And he thought it was appalling the way we treated people. Like Emerson said, the doctor of the future will use no medicine, you use energy medicine. If we want more light, we just have to put in bigger bulbs, get a bigger transformer. The only limit placed on electricity is the limit that's placed on the form through which it's flowing. Do you know nobody even knows what electricity is? All we know is the laws by which it operates. Well, the only limit placed on that power is the limit that's placed on the form through which it's flowing. The only limit that's placed on this power is the limit that's placed on the form through which it's flowing. There's no limit to what you can do, absolutely none. And he said, everything works from the mind down. You work from a higher to a lower potential. You don't raise morale, it filters down from the top. So he said, the problem is nobody's ever seen the mind. So he said, I'm going to draw a picture of the mind. And he said, I want you to let this represent the mind. He says, that's the conscious, that's the subconscious, and that's the body. He says, the body's the instrument of the mind. Now, without question, in all the years I've studied, this is the most valuable idea I have ever learned. And I'll never forget the day I learned it. A man named Neelan Valvandiwal, a great big man from Western Canada. He sat down with me one day, and I'd done a lot of studying. I mean, I had a ton of knowledge. And it was like I had all the pieces for the puzzle laid out on a big table. But I couldn't get them to fit. I didn't have the lid for the box. And I just couldn't get some of this information to connect with other information. And when he put this drawing in front of me, it was like that, all this information came together. And I had an awareness that was just absolutely unreal. This drawing is worth its weight in gold. Now let's look at it. Here's the conscious, subconscious, and the body. Now, the conscious mind is your thinking mind. If I were to sit down with you, if I were working with you or selling you, that's what you would look like. You would look like that drawing, and I did an imaginary line right across the center of your head. And I could shock you with how much I know about you, because everything on the inside showing up on the outside. See, that instrument you're living in is a mass of molecules, and it casts off a ray of energy. Well, you get a mental faculty that can read that energy, so you know what the person's like. That's your thinking mind. It's also called the educated mind. And it's where the intellect is resident. Now, it's the intellect that separates us from our pets. I get a couple little dogs at home that can see, hear, smell, taste, touch, but they cannot think. Although at times, if this one started to talk to me, I wouldn't be surprised. All right. Now listen, the subconscious is your emotional mind. It operates totally different than the conscious mind. I would imagine many of you have Dr. Joseph Murphy's book, The Power of the Subconscious. It's probably one of the best books on the subconscious mind that's been written, but it doesn't have a picture of the mind. And so you could be, a little mixed up. You study this and then go and study Murphy's book and you'll really get something out of it. Now look at the conscious mind, you have the ability to choose. Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, he was a Jewish psychiatrist, spent the war years in a German concentration camp, and he said while he was in that camp, regardless of the intellectual or physical abuse he was subjected to, no one could cause him to think something he didn't want to think. That was his choice. Yet we've got the ability to accept or reject whatever we hear. All that stuff on television, the radio, and the newspapers, reject it if you don't like it. Just don't spend any time thinking about it. Because what was there today will be gone tomorrow. You have the ability to accept or reject anything. And if you reject it, then you can go ahead and you can originate whatever you want. Now, your subconscious mind does not have that ability. Your subconscious mind must accept whatever you give to it. It's like the earth. It's immoral. It doesn't care what you plant, but it'll accept it because it gives no ability to reject it. And this is a part that you really want to learn. The subconscious mind cannot differentiate between what's real and what's imagined. If you start to imagine something bad, you will start feeling bad. If you imagine something good, you'll start feeling good. Your subconscious mind just accepts what you give to it. It cannot tell the difference. Well, mentally see yourself as the leader you want to be. This is where I'm going. That's what I'm going to earn. That's how I'm going to act. And don't worry about the people that are laughing, saying, who do you think you are? Say, I don't think who I am. I know damn well who I am. You see? Now, with that in mind, let's look. That's information that's as accurate as you'll find, and it's valuable information. Let's look here. Here we are. We're being inundated with information today. This is us today. And we're getting bombarded with all kinds of information. Because we have a reasoning factor in our conscious mind, we have the ability to think. It's with reason that we think. Now, we have the ability to tell all that stuff on the radio, TV, newspapers. We have the ability to tell it, just get out of town. Get out of here. But we don't do that. We let it play. We not only let it play, we let it go right into our subconscious mind because we leave our mind wide open. Remember what I said, the subconscious cannot reject, and all that stuff's going right in. That's our emotional mind. Why would we do that? We've been programmed to do it. That's part of what we call the paradigm. How did that happen? I'll tell you exactly how it happened. Let's close the window on that for a minute and go over here. This is us as infants. Anybody's got a little baby, this is the way the baby arrives. The baby's mind is wide open, and whatever's going on around that baby will go right into that baby's subconscious mind. And it keeps going in. Whatever those people are saying or doing is going right into that baby's subconscious mind. That baby will grow up speaking the language of the people it's surrounded by. If you took the baby out of an English-speaking home here and put him in the suburbs of Beijing, that baby'd grow up fluent in Chinese. No knowledge of the English language. Almost all welfare recipients are 4th, 5th generation welfare recipients. That's why. If the parents don't go to school, the kids won't go to school. No one in our family ever went to school. I only changed one question. They said to me, are you going? No, hell, I'm out of here. I didn't want to go. I just didn't ask my kids if they were going to go. I asked them where they were going to go. Just change one question. And you change the whole breed. You see? Now look, over and over that information is coming in. It's being dumped into your subconscious mind. That's how a self-image is formed. You bring people into your business and you know they've got low self-esteem. You can tell by the way they talk, the way they dress, the way they look at you and act. Help them build a self-image. Help them understand who they are. Way back in the 60s, there was an author, Robert Heinlein, and he wrote a book called Strangers in a Strange Land. He said, in absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia until ultimately we become enslaved by it. That's what happens to most kids. They're enslaved by daily trivia because that's all they're surrounded by. That's what's dumped into their mind. And that's how the paradigm is formed. And here we are here. That's, you like the food you have, the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you meet, greet people. That's the way we are here 40, 50, 75 years later. It's just a program, and it's rather sad. Now let's take a look. There's a baby, a brand new baby. Now here's the graphic illustration of the baby, just the subconscious mind, because that's how a baby arrives on the scene. You see, baby arrives, and that's like the baby that's arriving, okay? Now, what's going on? Whatever's going on around that baby goes right into that baby's subconscious mind. And that baby becomes a product of its environment. And that is where the paradigm is formed. That's where the self-image is formed. And of course, the paradigm. Then the conscious faculties at a certain age begin to develop. And they develop their senses. They start to hear, see, smell, taste, touch. You watch a baby, you'll see the hand going fast to his face and they're watching it. You're like, just wonder, where'd that come from, you know? Well, a brand new baby, it's sort of fun watching the baby become aware, right? Well, here's what we want to understand. The conscious mind is also the intellectual mind, and here's the higher faculties: perception, will, imagination, memory, intuition, and reason. Do you know there's no such thing as a bad memory? Everybody's got a perfect memory. Well, we have all these higher faculties. What we want to do is learn how to use them. Now, as we start to learn how to use these, everything in our life changes. Now, at a very early age, we start to go to school. And what happens in school? Well, we don't learn what we should. What did Einstein say? The intuitive mind is a sacred gift. Well, the rational mind is a faithful servant. We've created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Now, here's your higher faculties. You've got your perception, get this flipper working properly, your memory, imagination, reason, intuition, and the will. These are like mental tools. As you develop these, you take control over your life. They're phenomenal tools. I've been working at those now for over 50 years. Here's the child going to school. Let's take a look. Okay? We get valuable knowledge in school, however, they taught us nothing about paradigms. So you got people that know how to do things, but they don't do it. Why? Superior knowledge, inferior results, and they get confused and frustrated. Now here's the model of the child. They've gone to school and they've gathered a ton of information, but the results don't match the information. Now you have relatives, you have friends who are absolutely brilliant, but the results would indicate that they don't know very much. And that causes a lot of frustration in the person's life, but it also causes a lot of frustration in their life. They're thinking, how come I see Harry and Betty, they're doing great, and they're not even very bright. They didn't even go to school, and they're earning millions. What happened? How come? Well, you see, it's the paradigm that controls the results, not the knowledge that you've got. You can have the knowledge. There's people in your business that have all kinds of knowledge. They really study network marketing. They have studied it. They understand multi-level network. They understand it. They can explain it. They can give you a talk. It'll blow your mind how much they know, but they don't do anything. There's a lot of people around this industry, been in it for years. They're not doing anything. What's the matter? They're following the same pattern school laid down for them. If they can talk well, if they got all this information, they figure they've got it. They haven't got it at all. Look at, if you're going to change your results, you've got to change the paradigm. It's absolutely essential. And how do you change the paradigm? It's repetition of information. So look, this is you. Here's your mind, your body. There's your conscious mind, subconscious. And you've got all these higher faculties. We know that. And they're like little antennae. But we've also got these other faculties called our conscious mind, our intellect. And we want to learn how to utilize those. And most people don't know how they work. They don't know how. And yet it's with those higher faculties that you control your emotional state. You also control the results you're getting. And it's rather sad most people don't know that. They just don't know it. And that is because that's the way we've been raised. No knowledge of these higher faculties. We go by what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch. So we look at the report card and we go by what the report card says. You know what the report card's telling you? It tells you where your mind was at a few minutes, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's got absolutely nothing to do with your potential. Nothing. Why would we let that guide us? Because we've been programmed to. Now, this is a black and white deal. It doesn't matter how hard you work, how many hours you put in. If the paradigm doesn't change, the results ultimately remain much the same from one year to the next. And you'll see that happen in your company. You'll see it happen in your family. You'll see it happen in your social circles. People, nothing changes very much. That's rather sad. When paradigms stay in control, nothing changes. So if you're having difficulty really making it happen, understand it's the paradigm where the problem is. It is the paradigm. It's the conditioning in our subconscious mind. The more we learn about that, the more we take control over our life. Now, I'm going to share with you an idea that I learned from studying Think and Grow Rich, and it's the most valuable idea I've ever learned in all the years I've studied this. Just one idea from this chapter is responsible for me earning literally millions of dollars. And I think it'll work for anyone. You see, Jenna mentioned it earlier, Andrew Carnegie in 1908 was the wealthiest man in the world. He thought it was an absolute crime that people like himself, like Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, were going to their grave with all the knowledge they had locked up in their bones. You see, Carnegie came over from Scotland to America as a young boy with his parents. They had nothing. They started out with nothing. But by 1908, he was the wealthiest man in the world. Napoleon Hill was a young guy in his 20s working for a little magazine, and they got a project where they were going to interview wealthy people. He got the opportunity of spending 3 hours with the wealthiest guy in the world. So he got 3 hours with Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie spent 3 hours, and what Hill didn't know is Carnegie was looking for someone that could take all this knowledge and organize it. Because he says, it's a shame we're all going to our grave with this locked up in us. And so he had been looking for someone that could organize all this information, and he thought maybe Hill was the guy. So at the end of the 3 hours, he said, Napoleon, this meeting isn't ending, it's just beginning. I want you to come home with me. Hill later wrote that he was glad he took him home because he said he didn't have enough money to rent a hotel room. So here he is, a young reporter going home with the wealthiest guy in the world. Carnegie spent 3 days talking to him, explained his whole philosophy. At the end of the 3 days, he says, Napoleon, I'm going to ask you a question. And I just want a yes or a no answer. He said, would you dedicate the rest of your life to an idea for which you would probably receive no material compensation for at least 20 years? I've asked myself that question so many times. What would I have done if I was him? And I think I would have said yes. I think if I had spent 3 days with this guy, I think you'd get a read on him. You'd realize that he's not going to, he's going to be a square shooter. So Hill said, yes, he would. Now he said, Napoleon, I just want a yes or a no answer. He had a stopwatch in his hand under a desk. And he said, would you dedicate the rest of your life to an idea which will probably receive no material compensation for 20 years? In 25 seconds, Hill said, yes, I will. 25 seconds. In this book, Hill wrote a whole chapter on decision. It's the longest chapter in the book. He had to make a decision that was going to change the course of his life. And he did it in 25 seconds. After they spent some time together, Carnegie said, now, Napoleon, everything in you is going to want to quit. If you're new here in my daily choice, long before you get to the top, everything in you is going to want to quit. If you're relatively new, you will have days when every part of you wants to quit. So I said, I'm going to give you an affirmation. Now, I want you to write this down. I want you to underline every word. Now, he says, you're going to be talking to yourself, Napoleon. And this is what he asked him to write down. Andrew Carnegie, I'm not only going to equal your achievements in life, I'm going to meet you at the post and pass you at the grandstand. Hill said he threw his pencil on the floor, and he said, John, you know darn well that's not going to happen. And Carnegie said, yes, I know it's not, Napoleon, unless and until you properly plant that in your subconscious mind. So he said, I want you to make me a commitment that every morning and every night you'll look in the mirror repeating that, talking to yourself. And I want you to do that for 30 days. And Hill said, well, I can do that. So he made a commitment to do that. Now he went home, And he had made a commitment to his brother that he was going to finance him through college. He was living with his brother, and he wasn't going to be able to do that. And he said he couldn't tell his brother. He just took on a task where he's going to work 20 years for nothing. And Carnegie told him he's not going to subsidize him. He's going to have to find his own way. So it wasn't easy for him. Yet the first day, he went in the bathroom and he closed the door, and he looked in the mirror and he whispered it. Andrew Carnegie, I'm not only going to equal your achievements in life, I'm going to pass you, meet you at the post and pass you at the grandstand. And he did that every morning and every night. And he said he felt like a darn fool. He thought this isn't going to happen, but he made a commitment he would do that, so he did it. By the middle of the month, he thought maybe it would happen. By the end of the month, he knew it was going to happen. I've done a lot of research on Carnegie. I've read where he made about 50 millionaires. Napoleon Hill has made millions of millionaires. Literally. Now, Carnegie introduced him to all of the world's leaders. He became intimate friends with Henry Ford, with Edison, with Firestone, presidency, everybody. He interviewed them, and he put together all this information. And he wrote the Laws of Achievement. From the Laws of Achievement came that book. So do you see, the man that gave me the book, he said, Bob, you get the best of thinking of 500 of the world's most successful people. There was a commonality in their thinking, in their mode of operation. And he said, that's why you win. Now this is where he's got it here. Look what he says. He points out here, analysis of several hundred people who had accumulated fortunes well beyond the $1 million mark disclosed the fact that every one of them had the habit of reaching decisions promptly and of changing those decisions slowly if and when they were changed. People that don't have any much success, they change their decisions, make them very slow, and change them fast and often. See, it's such a difference, such a big difference. Now, I'm going to show you something about decision that I think this is worth its weight in gold, so I would really think about this. Let these lines, again, represent levels of vibration. Levels of vibration are referred to as frequencies, and we think on frequencies. So we let these puffy little clouds represent our thoughts, and it's our thoughts that produce the results we're getting. This is a very valuable lesson right here. Everybody's getting results. They may be different all over the place, but we've all got results. Then we sit and we dream and we say, that's where I want to go, and I'm going to go there as soon as I get the money. I'm going to buy that car as soon as these people start producing. We're always going to change the result. We're going to get the dream when the results change, but what they don't understand is that the results are based on their thinking. Pretty soon the decision fades, and then pretty good, the dream fades too. Now you see that happen with people all the time. Now let's think about this for a moment. What's the problem? Well, the problem is the mind and thoughts are down here on this frequency. And the goal is way up here on this higher frequency, you see? The mind and the thoughts have to operate in the same frequency as the goal. Now that would be like me trying to phone you and I dial my sister's number. I'm not going to get you. Not when I'm dialing my sister's number. Well, if you're down here in the lower frequency and you're trying to get something from the higher, you're not going to get it. That's like trying to get FM music on an AM band. You won't get it. People don't understand this. And they think, well, you've got to know how. You've got to know where the money comes from. No, you don't. No, you don't. You only have to know that you're going. And you've got to say, I am doing this. I'm going there. I'm making a committed decision. When you're committed, you do it regardless. Now, I don't know Jenna and Josh that well, but I know them well enough. They don't have to know how to do it to commit to do it. And the second you say, I'm going to do that, you start to think and act like the person you want to become. Look what happened. You got rid of the lower way of thinking, and you instantly start thinking on a higher frequency. You see, as long as you're down here, on this frequency, you're never going to get what's up there. You've got to get your mind onto a higher frequency. You've got to think and act like the person you want to become. Every book tells you that. Every great leader, you've got to act like the person you want to become. This is not a kid's game. This is something where you can write your own ticket. You can earn whatever you want to earn. You can live where you want to earn. Live. Go where you want to go. The only prerequisite for making a decision is do you want to. That's it. Now, I'm going to tell you that's a long ways removed from where most people live. Well, you got to know where the money's coming from. You got to know how you're going to do it. You got to know where you're going to get the people. You got to know how they're going to do this. Well, no, you don't got to know any of that stuff. You just got to know where you're going, and you got to know you're going to get there. You see, want is the only prerequisite. This is the reason successful people make decisions so fast. They don't fool around. They make decisions fast. And they're the winners. Now, they seem a little reckless at times to the real organized, analytical, get the slide rule out and figure out how that house is going to get paid for, When Dr. Wernher von Braun was asked by John Kennedy what would it take to build a rocket that would carry a man to the moon, bring him back safely here to Earth, he answered in 5 words: the will to do it. That's it, the will to do it. What'll it take you to get to where you want to go? The will to do it. You see, the will is the ability to hold one idea on the screen of the mind, and if you do that, everything else will follow. You get on that frequency, and then you're going to attract whatever is required for the manifestation of that picture. Most people do not understand that, so they've got to know where the money's coming from. And the truth is, you don't. See, when the chief asked me, Bob, do you know what you're doing? I said, I know what I'm doing. I really didn't. I was scared. But I had this dream in my mind. I saw myself building this building maintenance company. I had some buckets and mops and a contract, and that's about all. But pretty soon, I was in 7 different cities in 3 countries, and I was earning a fortune. That's all you need. There's Kennedy out talking to von Braun. And what did he say when he asked him? He said, the will to do it. That's all you required. That's all you require to get to where you want to go. Now, that was a big move. That was, how do we get to the moon and bring him back safely to Earth? It's a pretty big idea. Decision must be committed decision. This is a wonderful place to make big decisions. You will never in a long time, maybe never in your life, get into energy like in this room. You won't. Just stop and think of the amount of money and the time and the planning that's gone into what's going on here in this room. And you're in it. Make decisions in here that's going to last you a lifetime. Now, if you really want to execute your decision, you've got to have discipline. This is something I learned from my first mentor, and it's worth its weight in gold. Discipline is the ability to give yourself a command and follow it. This I will do. Then do it. Don't whine, don't complain, don't blame conditions or circumstance. Do it. And if you're having a problem, go look in the mirror. You want to control the flow of thought energy that's coming through and to us. It's coming to and through us. Now, we talked about this a few minutes ago. You are a mass of energy on a very high frequency. No one knows what you're capable of doing. There is no one alive that knows what you're capable of doing. I remember when we were building a cleaning business, we got the idea we'll put a supervisor on the road and we'll get him a car phone. We had to put ski racks in the top of his car to mount an aerial so that his phone would work. Then there was only a half a dozen channels in the entire city, so it was always garbled. Somebody else was always on the channel. Do you know why we had that? Because we didn't know how to do what we do today. Today we know there's an infinite number of frequencies. Everybody has a phone, has their own frequency. There's an infinite, not millions, infinite number of frequencies. Energy operates on frequencies. When you're thinking, make sure you know what you're thinking. Now look at, we say a frequency is a level of vibration. There are literally an infinite number of frequencies. Now stay with me here. Every frequency is hooked up to the one above and the one below. Now, I don't know what kind of a deep thinker you might be, but you know what that means? That means that every one of us are connected. Everything in the universe is connected. What we call space here is not space. It's energy. If we sealed this whole room up airtight and start pumping more air into it, more of this no thing, you'd blow the walls out. What you can't see is powerful. Now let's look at this. Let that X represent where you are in your life. X is just the unknown factor. Now get serious about this for a few minutes. Let that X represent where you are. Take an honest look at where you are in your life, and you can see how you got here. If you don't like it, that's okay. If you do like it, that's okay. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. This is where you are. We can look backwards at how we got here. And it's all there in front of us. All those different lines, they're levels of awareness that we've moved through. Do you remember you did this and that happened, then you moved here, and then you met her, or he met her, she met him, and our lives start to change. You'll see how you got here. Now this is where you are, but you'll say, that's where I want to go. Now think, really stay with me here. This is so important. This is where you are, but say, that's where I want to go. And you have no idea how to get there, and you let the dream fade. Realize you can go there. You just don't know how. Kennedy said, how can we get there? Let's go to the moon and bring it back safely to Earth. Von Braun says, just the will to do it. That's all you need. You know, to move to a much higher frequency of thought, and that's what you're doing, you must first consent. You know, but nobody can do this for you. You know that person you just brought into the business, you'd love to do this for them, you can't do it for them. You cannot do it for them. They got to do it themselves. You can't do it for your own kids. They got to do it. Then they have to adapt to the ideas and the feelings the new frequency represents. If you move, and the kids move, and they have to go to a different school, they have to adapt to that new frequency. They're in a different environment. You got to adapt to these things. Now here's what we want to know. At the suggestion of a move, your paradigm is instantly going to put up a huge battle. All that conditioning inside is going to put up a huge battle, and it will continually fight you. You've got to take conscious control over the paradigm, and remove and replace it. So there you are there, and say, that's where I want to go. Well, we want to understand, rather than let that fade, let's understand this. There is a place. That's a frequency. That is a place. And you have gone there. The second you've gone there. See, all the great avatars, all the great leaders, they've known if you can see it, if you can hold it in your head, you can hold it in your hand. If you can see what you're going to do with the business, then you can do it. That's how you got into the mirage. That's how the company's become what it is. That's how your company's becoming what it is. There is not something to just let fade. Look at, in this book is a paragraph. If you were to look in the book, I highlighted that paragraph in yellow, I don't know, 50 years ago. And it's one that I just kept studying. He says there's a difference between wishing for a thing and being ready to receive it. No one is ready for a thing until they believe that they can acquire it. The state of mind must be belief and not mere hope or wish. Open-mindedness is essential to belief. Closed mind will not inspire faith, courage, or belief. You see, you're not ready for something until you believe you can do it. Hoping and wishing won't cut it. So when you sit down with a person and you're helping them build a big idea, you're going to have to educate them. You've got to help them understand something about themselves. You can do that by possibly sharing some of your own path that you've been on. But you see, you've got to believe it. Believe is the key. Remember I told you it took me 9.5 years to get all the pieces to fit? I was in a hotel with Vanderwall, and he said something, and everything came together. Now, I had learned that there's only two sources of refuge you can go to. One's science and the other's theology. There's only half a dozen religions. I think in California there's 5,000. Everybody starts their own. So, I mean, you know, but there's only a half a dozen religions. Every one of them are in a complete agreement you got to believe. All the great psychology teachers said you got to believe. William James in Harvard, back in 1900, he said, believe and your belief will actually create the fact. That's the key. Well, I was sitting there with Vanderwall, and I knew this, and I think, how do you believe? I mean, that's a big, how do you believe? And he said, our belief system is based upon our evaluation of something. And frequently, if we reevaluate a situation, our belief about that situation will change. I thought, wow, that's what happened to me. I went from earning $4,000 a year and living in debt and unhappy to becoming happy, healthy, wealthy, and business all over the world. Wow. I kept studying, and because I kept studying, I kept believing more of what I could do, because I started to understand me better. Know thyself, know thy higher self. That was the key. And that's how my belief, I was thinking, how do you change your belief? That's how, through study. Our belief system is based upon our evaluation of something. And frequently when we reevaluate a situation, our belief about that situation will change. That's what I had done. And all of a sudden I got so excited because I knew then why I changed, and I knew I could teach other people how to make the change they want to make. You see, as we look at this, let's understand this. When I said there is a place, there is a place. Don't think it's just a thought. You took your mind to a higher frequency. You saw what was there. That's how we've got the life we've got today. Two young bicycle mechanics, they defied logic. They introduced us to a new kingdom. I flew down here, I've got to fly down to California, go back to Toronto, the next day I've got to go to Germany and then to Vienna. All over the world, doesn't matter where you go, you can get there, nothing flat. Why? Someone raised their level of consciousness. They realized there's a place. You got to believe. You keep studying what Jenna tells you to study, I guarantee you your life will change. Your business will grow. Now look at this. Hill said, remember, no more effort is required in order to aim high, to demand abundance and prosperity, than is required to accept misery and poverty. Doesn't take any more energy. It's exactly the same energy. You know the energy I was worrying with? That same energy I built since sitting with it. You can do anything. Doesn't matter where you came from. What matters is where you're going. Now look at the moment your belief matches with any state you fuse with it, you become one with it. This union results in the activation and projection of its plots and plans and conditions and circumstances. When you believe, everything in your world starts to change. Your perception shifts. Everything around you changes. You're seeing different people, you're mixing with different people, you're going different places, doing different things. Some of you have seen so much change, it's mind-boggling. And you've seen nothing relative to what you're going to see. That's the way it works. See, this new state of conscious awareness becomes your home, from which you view the world. This is your workshop. Yet if you're observing, you will see your outer reality shaping itself upon the model of your imagination. It's all scientific. It can be explained right down to the smallest detail. We've got so much going for us, and yet we don't really understand it. Now look at Steve Jobs says you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. Isn't that interesting? You don't know how you're going to get there, but you know you're going to get there. You don't know how you're going to get to the next level, but you know you're going to get there. You don't have to know how you're going to get there. I had the good fortune of working with Edmund Hillary on 3 or 4 occasions. He's gone now, God bless him, but the only difference in Ed Hillary and myself is his size. He was a big guy. He was a beekeeper from Auckland. But he was the first guy to stand on top of the world. He went there in 51 and he failed. He went back in 1952 against all the relatives and the neighbors thought he was going out of his mind because everybody had died that had gone up there. He failed again in 52. But in 1953, he and Tenzing Norgay stood right on top of the world. He knew he could get there because he could see it in here. And if you can see it in here, you can hold it out here. That's just the way it works. Now look at, what did he say? He said, you can't connect the dots looking back, you can only connect them looking forward. And that's just the way it works. And as you start moving, it starts happening. It just starts to unfold right in front of you. Now, here's the crazy part of it. When you get there, you'll say, damn, I could have gone there. Yeah. That's the part you want to remember. Don't be afraid of shooting too high. Most people are shooting too low. Now, nothing is big or small except our thinking makes it so. Everything just is. I remember one time I was going to Israel to do a seminar. You fly out of Toronto at night to go to Israel, but I don't know, 10, 11 o'clock at night. I got to the airport and went to check in. She says, I'm sorry, Mr. Proctor, you can't get on the plane. I said, what are you talking about? Why not? She says, your passport's no good. I says, my passport is good until July. It's only April. She says, no, your passport has to be good for 6 months from the date you leave Israel. I'd never heard of this. This is pretty common in many countries, but I'd never heard of it before. This is a few years ago. I said, oh, let me on the plane anyway. It won't matter. Yeah, she said, it will matter, and we can't let you on the plane. If we did, as soon as you landed, they'd put you on the next plane out of the country. I said, oh, okay. I had people come from all over Israel to a seminar. And the woman that was putting together, I thought she'd be really upset. She says, well, it is what it is. God, I learned the biggest lesson that day. It is what it is. That's the way it is. Don't get upset. It is what it is. Can you do the best you can? If it doesn't work, that's the way it is. Now let's look here. Your spiritual being is perfect. It requires no modification, no improvement. Okay? Now let's look. You're a spiritual being living in a physical body. You've been gifted with an intellect. And it's the intellect that'll dictate your emotional state, and that's going to control where you're going. And if you've got a problem there, it's your intellect, it's the thoughts that you're thinking that is messing things up. And that's what we want to change. And we're quite capable of changing it. All we have to do is gain an understanding. So let's look. The highest side of our personality is the spiritual side of us. That's the part nobody can see. The lower side is the physical, and then we have the intellect. Now with the intellect, we can tap into the non-physical, which is omnipresent, doesn't matter where you are. You can be underwater and you can think. Yet you can pull the thoughts together and you can build ideas. Yet it's the ideas that you build and hold in your mind that's ultimately going to manifest into results and change your world. You can think anything you want. It's by activating the higher side of our own personality, and that's the side we have not been taught much about, unfortunately. Your goal is most important. This is where you really connect the dots. Okay? Now, why is goal creation an art? Goal creation is an art because you're manipulating energy. You're causing energy to move from where it is to where it's going, and it would have never gone there if you hadn't been involved. It's very, very important. And there's a three-step approach to this. A, B, C. A is where you've been in before, and so you'll have a tendency to set goals to do something you've already done. B is if you figured it all out and you think you can do it. C is what you want to do. Now you see, the fantasy is the part we were discouraged. That's for kids. So we were encouraged not to do that. So we go from where? We go from what we know to what we think we can do. And we get bored there, there's no inspiration in it, so we come back down here and then do what we know we can do. And this is the way people bounce back and forth their whole life, and that's usually where they stay stuck. They don't know that they live with the creative faculties. Fantasy is what you want. That's where you start. Build your fantasy in your mind of yourself already at the level you want to be at. You take the fantasy and you turn it into a theory in your consciousness. And before you can turn that theory into a goal, you have to ask two questions. Am I able? And am I willing? And when the answer to that is, yes, I'm able, I've got infinite power, and yes, I'm willing to do what? To do whatever is required. Then I've turned that theory into a goal, got emotionally involved, and instantly that goal begins to move into physical form. And you turn the goal then into a fact. Now that is how this company has come together. When you get it together, then you're in the position to build bigger and better fantasies. That's a creative process. Now all of us can be involved in this, and I think the more we study, the more we're going to do it. And this is where von Braun said, the only thing you need is the will to do it. You have the will, and you can go anywhere, and you can accomplish anything. Now there's a problem here, and I'm going to explain something that I learned a long time ago. It's called a terror barrier. When you go to do something, it's scary because you're going where you've never been. And there's a four-step approach to this. You'll see the first one's bondage, the second reasons, the third's the terror barrier, and on the other side is freedom. So let's look at how we get there. Now every one of us experiences this at one time or another. Here we are in bondage. The X represents the conditioning. That's the paradigm in the subconscious mind, and it produces X-type results. What kind of thoughts do we think? We can think anything we want. We will think X-type thoughts because they're in harmony with our conditioning. The conditioning controls how you feel. You're not going to think thoughts that scare you. You're going to think thoughts that you're in harmony with. Then somebody comes along, or you come along, and you start talking to a person about my daily choice. And you talk to them about all the good things that can happen. Now, they start thinking they'd like to move here, they'd like to quit this job or do that. It's a why idea. As long as you're discussing the idea just in your conscious mind, everything's cool. Nothing happens, because the idea is just in the conscious mind. It's when you internalize that idea that all hell breaks loose, and that's when you hit what's called the terror barrier. And as you impress that why idea upon the X, everything goes crazy. And you run into what's called a terror barrier, and you bounce off that, worry, doubt, and fear strike, and you come right back to where you start. And that happens to people time and time again. They never learn to go through the terror barrier. You know, Joseph Campbell said something I think that's so good. He said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. Now think about that. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. If you've got a goal, you just want to go crashing right through the terror barrier. Don't worry about it. And as you go through it, you'll still experience the fear, because the fear is the X and Y energy mixing. But through the repetition of listening to the recordings, reading the book, pretty soon the X conditioning is gone and you're living in a totally new world. Now, this is something I learned over a long period of time. I want you to follow this, and you'll see how this happens. You have a choice. There's a power flowing into your consciousness. You can stay in ignorance, or you can develop knowledge. Okay? When that power flows into your consciousness, you can think anything you want. Absolutely anything you want. You have the freedom of thought. Yet generally, we will look at what we've got, and because we don't know how we're going to get the money to get there or get the people to do this, we start to doubt and worry. Now follow the track here. When a person starts to doubt and worry, that's on a conscious level. We get emotionally involved, it causes fear. The fear has to be expressed, because it was impressed, it has to be expressed through the body. So it expresses itself in anxiety. The anxiety is not expressed, it's suppressed. We bottle it up inside. The suppression turns to depression, the depression turns to disease, and the disease to disintegration. That's why St. Clair Lewis said we don't die, we kill ourselves. Now that's the way most people are living. And it's sad, and they don't have to do that. Faith based on understanding is the key to freedom. Look over here. Here's a person here, they're starting to understand what's doing. That's why Solomon said, in all you're getting, get understanding. Understand what you need to get to the top of your goal. Understand what you have to do for you to take control over you. Quit letting conditions and circumstance control you. Now the understanding, the only way you're going to get it is through study. There is no other way to get it. When I was talking to Josh and Jen, Josh said he's not into reading, he's into listening. So he's getting it on through the recordings. She's into the books. Didn't matter how you get it. Get it. Understanding. The only way to get it is through study. So we have a choice, and we take and we impress that on faith as well-being, expression, acceleration, and that is because you're at ease, and that causes creation. So you've got your choice there. You can bounce from there or there. It's your choice. Which way do you go? Now let's look. I'm going to bring it in for a landing in a minute. Let's look at the law of compensation. This company is based on this law. The law of compensation is clear. The amount of money you earn is going to be in exact ratio to the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty there is in replacing you. Now think about that. The amount of money you earn is in direct ratio to the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty there is in replacing you. Now think about the need for what you do. What you're really doing is showing people how to take control of their life. Forget about the product for a minute, just think of the marketing part of it. You're showing people how to earn what they want, live where they want, work where they want. Then you take a look at the product from a physical perspective, you're helping people on that level. So everywhere you go in the world, there's people want what you've got. The need is there. So that's there, you don't have to worry about it. Your ability to do it, how good are you at it? If you develop your ability, you're going to be very difficult to replace. And that's when the stock goes up. That's what you focus on. Get really good at what you're doing, and you'll become very difficult to replace. Hill talks about the big money. Anybody can get into it, but you have to understand how. Earl Nightingale said most people want more money than they think they do and settle for a whole lot less than they could earn. So true. If you make effective use of paradigm power, you're going to shift that paradigm. You can literally turn your annual income into a monthly income. There would be people in this room who have done that. They've turned their annual income to a monthly income. It may just be a dream for you, but understand this, if they can, you can. Okay? Now look. There are 3 income earning strategies. If you're going to teach your children one, teach them the third one. It's the only one that really works well. M1 is not a good strategy. It never was and it never will be. It's got an inherent problem. It's called saturation. M1 is used by 96 out of every 100 people. It's where they trade their time for money. It's a losing strategy. M2 is an excellent strategy. It's only used by 3% of the population, and for very good reason. There's only 3% have any money to invest. This is where money earns money. M3 is a strategy I stumbled on way back in the 60s. I started earning a lot of money and I really didn't know what I was doing. You're working with an M3 strategy. M3 is used to earn 96% of all the money that 1% is earning, and they do that, they multiply their time by setting up multiple sources of income. That's really what you're doing. And you know something? That's what your company is involved in. That's the path you're on. It's a winning path. There's no question about it. Now look at our world is changing, and it's changing so fast, it almost make your head spin. And the world's not getting bigger, the world is getting smaller. It's actually shrinking. You're not a long ways away from anywhere anymore. You can have business all over the world through this business. Every time you recruit someone, you've set up a source of income. Multiple sources of income is what wealthy people have used right back to the ancient Babylonians. They've always had multiple sources of income. Most people have one source, or if the spouse works, they have two. Then they may take on a part-time job, they have three. If you really want to win, you need multiple sources of income. Every time you bring a person into the business, that's a source of income. It's so important we understand this. And this is what you're introducing to people when you bring them into this company. When you tell them, my daily choice is about building a business, a global organization, because that's what you've got. Now, I call that the Wheel of Fortune, and the question is, are they all the same size of income? No. Some will build a big business, some will keep them small. But they all have one thing in common. They all flow into your bank. It doesn't matter where in the world the money comes from, it's converted and put in your bank. It's a beautiful thing, and it just keeps adding up. Now, I've caused you to think about a lot of different things. You've become aware of some things maybe you weren't aware of before. You're in the position now to make a big decision. That's what this whole conference is about. It's about you making a decision that you're going to do something with your business that you never dreamed before you came here. And I'm going to tell you, you're quite capable of doing it. No one knows where you're capable of going. No one. Before you close your eyes and go to sleep tonight, I want to suggest you stop and think of what von Braun said to President Kennedy. When Kennedy said, Dr. von Braun, what would it take for us to build a rocket that will carry a person to the moon and bring him back safely to Earth? He answered him in 5 words, the will to do it. That's all it'll take for you to execute a picture of yourself building a very big business with my daily choice. Build the business as big as you want in your mind and realize just going to take the will to do it. And what does that mean? That means the will is the mental faculty that you use to hold one idea on the screen of the mind. Just keep seeing the business the way you want it to be. Don't listen to anyone except someone that can support you and say, yes, I believe you can do it. And don't talk to your relatives or neighbors about what you're doing. Talk to your leaders about where you're going. Okay? I want to congratulate Jenna and Joshua. I think when Gene and I flew out of here, when we went in to see them, we were absolutely amazed with what they have done. 2 real young people building something very big. Now look at, if they can build what you're a part of, what can you do? My goodness, there's no end to where you can go. Build the business very big in your mind. Okay? I want to thank you for your attention. I've obviously enjoyed myself. We dumped a lot of information on you, and you will forget a lot of it, but you'll remember a lot of it. Make up your mind for the rest of your life, you're going to study it. I made that decision a long, long time ago. And you know something? I'm still going strong. I have a great life. I have wonderful friends all over the world. I earn more money than I would ever hope to get. And if I can do it, you can do it. That's what I was telling Joe in Kingston Penitentiary. I said, Joe, if I can, you can. And I said, your situation and my situation may be totally different. But I'll tell you something, you hold the right image in your mind, your situation will change. Regardless of how dull it may look or how bad it may look, hold a picture of what you want. I want to recommend that you go online tonight, download the lyrics for the song by Nat King Cole, Pretend. The lyrics are phenomenal. He starts out by saying, pretend you're happy when you're blue. It isn't very hard to do. And pretty soon you'll find happiness without an end whenever you pretend. That's the way you want to live with your business. Pretend you're already where you want to go. Just pretend. He says the little things you haven't got could be a lot if you pretend. I want to thank Jenna and Josh for inviting us here. I want to thank you for your attention. God bless you. Thank you.